Good morning, Mets fans, and welcome to what seems to be ages ago new edition of Drivin with Mr. Met. I am Mr. Met. It's been 2 weeks or more since I've recorded anything, and nothing's really happened in the 2 weeks that I've been gone. I'm going to try my best to recap a couple of things and give some opinions on a couple of things that have happened in Metsville, and I'm going to do that on today's show. Today is Friday, February 21st. It's been like 2 weeks or more since I've been able to get in front of the old car camera and record anything. Between being away for work and being excuse me, homebound and stuck with the flu for a week, it's been kind of a crazy last 2 weeks for me and also for the Mets. So that's what I'm here for. I'm here to talk about what's been going on in with the Mets as they've reported the spring training. I wasn't able to talk about that when it happened. As the Steve Cohen deal fell apart, I wasn't able to talk about that when it happened. As Cespedes came out and said he wasn't going to talk to the media this year, I wasn't able to talk about that when it happened. As Zach Wheeler and Brodie Van Wagenen had their little spat, wasn't able to talk about that when it happened. So, of those things, I'm going to talk about first Cespedes. That's the first thing I want to talk about because I'm very bullish on Cespedes for this year. I do expect him to participate a lot in the season. I do expect he's going to play a big role on the team this year, and I do expect that he's going to stick to his words and not talk to the media. And I've heard a bunch of different sides to this and a bunch of different stories and a bunch of different thoughts. And the one thought I don't think I heard anywhere is this is what you get, media, for treating what happened to Cespedes with the wild boar incident as a joke. Because it wasn't a joke. It certainly wasn't a joke to Cespedes, whose life was nearly taken from him. Because, as we now know, these wild boars are no joke, and Cespedes was injured by one, and it could have gone much worse than it did. So, for the media to have made a joke out of the whole situation the way they did, the ramifications of them playing and poking fun at the situation is and are that Cespedes is going to talk to you now. And good, that's what they get. Because this sensationalistic journalism of let's come up with the most ridiculous headline, clickbait that we can to stir the shit and stir the pot, it's coming back to bite you. And that's exactly what's happening here. And it's Cespedes' right to not talk to the media. He doesn't need to do that. And honestly, it doesn't make that big of a difference because he does all of his interviews in Spanish and they're translated. So that's number one. It isn't like he's directly talking with them. It's always through a translator. And at this point now, Cespedes is not the face of the team. He's not a team leader. He is a member of the team, but there are other guys on the squad now that can do the talking for the team, and Cespedes doesn't have to be in that role. So I'm perfectly fine with his decision not to talk to the media. I know a lot of people are pissed about it. They think he has to talk to the media. I don't at all. So that's where I land on that one. And it is what it is. I'm not saying anything else about it. I expect Cespedes to contribute this year a good deal, and that's that. And whether he talks to the press or not, I don't give a shit. Moving on, speaking of not giving a shit, and the press, Zach Wheeler and Brodie Van Wagenen had a little spat earlier this week. Started last week, I think a week ago today actually, that Wheeler was interviewed in Phillies camp. And it's interesting that Mets reporters are in Clearwater stirring the pot. Again, just like I said with the Cespedes thing, getting quotes from Wheeler, getting his feedback, It is interesting though that that the press is there and swarming and trying to get Wheeler to say something salacious, and that's sort of what happened here. That Wheeler was sort of like, the Mets didn't make an offer and I'm pissed at them, or whatever he said, and I don't think what happened is wrong by any stretch. The Mets had take the Mets out of the equation, okay? Let's try and just make this about a business needing to buy an asset, okay? If I'm a business owner and I have a budget for myself in a year, and I need to buy an asset for my company, and I can buy that asset from any number of different sources, and I have one that I'm familiar with, I've worked with in the past, but they're charging way more than I'm able to spend, or that I've identified as spendable for said asset. And then I have other alternatives that I don't have any experience with, but from what I can see and tell, it seems like they'll be adequate, and I can spend a lot more of my available budget on those other resources, those other assets. As a business owner, I have to consider the other assets. I know that it's nice to keep working with the same people, but the reality is the Mets had a budget. Wheeler, they identified how much they wanted to spend on Wheeler. He got a lot more money from the Phillies. Good for him, but it wasn't going to work out with the Mets. That's what it boils down to. There's no personal vendetta here. And that bothers me about the media, again, trying to make this personal. And I don't think Brodie did himself any favors by saying what he said about Wheeler this week, with the, taking credit for the 2 good half seasons that the Mets led Wheeler to. That was a little bit of a shitty thing for him to say, but still, is it that much of a stretch? I mean, really? And don't get me wrong. I mean, look, I wanted to keep Wheeler. I was 100% on board with bringing Wheeler back. But, again, like I said about the money thing, you don't have an unlimited set of resources. You do not have a bottomless pit of money that goes on forever. You can only spend up to a certain amount. And, again, as a business owner, you have to be able to make those decisions. We need 3 things. We can only afford 2. Which 2 do we need? And which one can we put off? Just as an example, that's the way this works, and that's what happened in this situation. So, should Brodie have fired back the way he did? No, I don't believe he should have fired back the way he did. But he did. It is what it is. Let's move on. Let's just see how mature the media can be about this, or if they're still going to poke this and stoke the flames on this little fire, which isn't a fire at all. It's like a match, and they keep spitting lighter fluid on it and hoping that it stirs up a little bit. And it's just ridiculous. It's tabloid journalism at its worst. So, again, now that's 2 things I'm picking on the media for. But now I'm done with that. So I'm no more picking on the media now. I'm moving on to the real thing. And that is that tomorrow is the very first spring training game of 2020. I cannot tell you how excited I am for the Mets to play tomorrow and for me to be able to watch the game. I am so excited. And it's funny, I was talking to a coworker yesterday. Yesterday was my first day back in the office in over 2 weeks. And I was talking to a coworker who was also a Mets fan. That's you, Nick. And he was like, man, you got to catch me up on what's going on with the Mets. I haven't been following it too much of late. And I'm like, dude, how much time do we have? So we decided we're going to go out to lunch one day next week and talk about it. But the point that I made with him was, like, there's so much noise surrounding the team this year. There's so much static and so much background noise. But my opinion, and look, I'm an eternal optimist when it comes to the Mets. I always have been. This is my 3rd season now doing this show, and I've been optimistic every season. If you go back to the dark days of the early 2010s, I was still optimistic. So I'm never going to really sway from that. But I'm not alone in my optimism this year. I'm not being the crazy optimistic fan who doesn't know how to say no to the Mets. Pacoda is picking the Mets to win the National League East. They are in the top 5 in the National League in a number of different projections. They have something in the neighborhood of a 70-some% chance to make the playoffs. And again, this all means nothing. It's the preseason, but still, there is optimism. Despite all of the bullshit surrounding this team in the offseason, between the Beltran stuff and the Wilpons just tripping over themselves at every opportunity they have. I mean, the Wilpons are literally sitting down in a chair and they would still figure out a way to trip over themselves. Everything that's gone on, all of this background noise, all of the nonsense, all of the managerial nonsense over the last 6 months, the Mets have had 3 managers, one of whom is undefeated. One of whom will at this point, will never win nor lose a game as Mets manager, but was a Mets manager. All of that nonsense, put it aside, because tomorrow the games start. And in a month, the season starts. And then all of the nonsense with the Steve Cohen stuff and the Wilpons stuff and the Beltran stuff and the Wheeler and Brodie stuff, all that stuff is gone. It's gone. And it's then time for the Mets to take the field and prove to the world that Pacoda's projections aren't a fluke and aren't nonsense. And I don't think they are. I don't. A lot of things have to go right. We talked about this before. But I feel really strongly about this season. This is a 90-plus win team. And I'm happy to be back talking about them. But I'm going to be even happier on Monday when I get to talk about the fact that I got to watch a baseball game this weekend and then the Mets were playing. So that's right. That's a promise. I will be back on Monday to talk about the spring training opener against the Marlins, which I think I'll be watching tomorrow. But we'll see. So until then, I'm sorry I was gone for so long. If you missed me, let me know. If you didn't miss me, I don't know. I mean, I miss doing this, so that's all that matters. I'm the only thing that matters. So hit me up on Twitter, though, at Mr_Met, and let me know what you think about today's show. You have any comments, thoughts, questions, etc., fill them out in the comments below. Be back on Monday, but until then, as always, let's go Mets.